Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada. I hope everybody is having a great week and is looking forward to a fantastic weekend. In this class, everyone, we are looking at IELTS Task 1 Writing for the academic version of the IELTS exam. And specifically, we will focus on Band 9 pie charts. So that's what we will be targeting today. Again, while we wait for some of our members, this is a members chat class. Of course, everybody is welcome to join. This lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS success, check us out there. For the general IELTS, please visit us at gieltshelp.com. Welcome, Kyber. While we wait for a few more members, I'll show you those websites real quick. This is our academic IELTS website here. You can click this big red button just above my head to join the premium package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. And we're an official British Council IELTS test registration center and certified agents, so you're in great hands with us. We help thousands of students every day improve on IELTS. You can read our success stories. There's lots of them. For the general IELTS, you can visit us here. It's the green background. This is at gieltshelp.com. Again, click this big red button to join our premium package there. Again, that's gieltshelp.com. And good news, students, we still have our Cyber Monday discount going on. It's a 40% discount code. So Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it's kind of our best 2 weeks for discounts in the year. And the code is Cyber Monday. So, sorry, Cyber Day, this right here, Cyber Day. So if you use this code Cyber Day, that's again just right there above my head, then you can get that 40% discount from our premium package. Hi Pranjal, hi Jainil. All right, to get our apps, go to your app store, grab our app for the academic. It's Academic IELTS Help. For the general IELTS, it's General IELTS Help. The apps link to the websites, so you can learn from your mobile or from your computer from the same account. And to follow us, learn daily vocabulary, get lots of tips, follow us on Instagram, IELTS_AEHelp and GIELTS Help. If you have questions, I'm happy to help. Adrian at aehelp.com. Okay. All right, so we've got a couple of classes for you today. We've got this Task 1 class. That's yesterday, so we'll get rid of that. We've got the Task 1, again, it's the academic Task 1 writing. General IELTS is different, so I see Yahavir, Rumi, and Toxi in our General IELTS lesson. And I know we have a mix of students, general and academic, on both our YouTube channels, so we kind of show Task 1 on both. But again, just be really careful about which kind of IELTS you're writing, general or academic, because Task 1 is quite different. Even the style of the essay is quite different. So pay attention to that. Okay. All right. I'm going to try to get a bit more of the chat here. Hi, Rashika. Okay, maybe some of our regular students can hear my voice is a bit off. I'm just getting over a cold, so hopefully my voice lasts, but we'll see. We're going to work through this essay together here. Okay, so let's get into Task 1 while I still have a voice. All right, so if you hear my voice crackling, popping, it's not the microphone, it's actually my voice, so you can have a good chuckle about that, and then we'll move on. Okay, Jainil says, me too. Yeah, it's that time of the year. It's cold season. Okay. Definitely not COVID. It's not a dry cough or a cold, that's for sure. Okay, so everybody, here's Academic IELTS Task 1 Writing. Let's get into this. First step, always, okay, you just finished the reading section. You took an hour on the reading. Maybe by the end of it, you were rushing. You're reading really quickly. And now you got to the writing section. So very importantly, everyone, when you get to the writing section, just take a moment, slow yourself down. You have to read the question carefully, okay? So read the question very carefully. Good morning, June. All right, so here we go. Let's read this question. Let's work through it. So you should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The pie charts below show exports between the US and Vietnam. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. This is a very, very, very typical kind of question for academic task 1. And you have to write at least 150 words. That's minimum. So just again, a reminder for those students that might be watching this for the first time and kind of getting an idea around this. Band 7 to 9 essays are closer to 220 words for task 1. Okay, so you don't lose any marks for going over the word limit. In fact, you'll get more marks if you give good detailed information. But you do lose marks for going under, and they do count it. A lot of people who are sitting the computer-based exam, counting is very simple because the computer does it. So the computer will actually show your word count while you're typing. So you can check your word count, okay? You can actually see it during your exam, all right? So you can keep an eye on that. Hi, Jyoti. All right. All right. No worries, Arda. I hope your volleyball games went well. Okay, so we read this this question, and then the next step, everyone, is to look at the diagram here. And I know my head's covering a part of it, but that's okay. You'll see it in a moment. I can shrink it down. Okay, so here we have exports between the US and Vietnam, and I'm trying a new tool here today, students, so bear with me. There we go. So we have exports between the US and Vietnam. Always pay attention to the title, okay? The title is very, very important. And then here we have exports Vietnam to the US, so it's Vietnam is sending to the US. And for instance, right away here as I'm looking at this, if I'm thinking Vietnam is exporting to the US, then what is the US doing if we're looking at it the other way with Vietnam? So Vietnam is exporting to the US, and the US is verb from Vietnam. So what's the verb there? And this is the kind of thinking, the recognition that you want to have going on while you're analyzing this kind of a graph, okay? Jabroni says, does it mean that if my task 1 is around 107 words, there's no chance to score 7 to 9 band? Jabroni, there is a chance, but it has to be perfect writing. You might not score 9, but you could probably score a 7, maybe an 8 if you wrote a perfect essay at 170 words. We've talked to lots of examiners, and they said that, yeah, usually essays that are 150, 160, 70 words just don't have enough detail. They don't mention enough of the graph, okay? All right, Pancham, I hope your speaking went well today. Yeah, exactly. So Jainiel Jainiel is answering your question as well. So Jainiel says, no, but the chance to get a high band is lower, for sure. You have to really have an extremely well-written, concise essay at 170 words. It's almost easier to write 200 words and get a higher score than 170. Okay. Vivek says receiving. Harwinder says exchange. Rashika says import. Yeah, no, US is importing, right? So exactly, Rashika. That's the word I was looking for. So if Vietnam is exporting to the US, then the US is importing from Vietnam, right? So now we can write 2 different ways about this pie chart, and kind of the same with this other side here. So the US is exporting to Vietnam, or Vietnam is importing from the US. Exit, going out, in, coming in, import, okay? All right, and then we take a look at the actual, let me see how I clear this, there we go. So we look at the actual graphs themselves, okay? So here are the two pies. And at the start, you don't really need to really get into these small pieces like rice 4.3, seafood 4.4. You don't need to really pay too much attention to that. And we're looking in millions of dollars, okay? Obviously here. But we don't really need to look at the small details yet. We just kind of want to look at the slices, okay? So here we have one slice, here we have another slice, here we have another slice. So basically we count the number of slices, okay? All right, and we can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slices for Vietnam's exports to the US, right? And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items mentioned for US exports to Vietnam. So what I'm doing here is I'm collecting the information for the introduction and the overview of this graph, okay? So both of them have 6, and the other part that we notice right away is that you have some kind of big slices, and then you have some smaller slices, and you have that for both, right? So you have some big slices like this, and then you have some smaller slices like that as well, right? Okay, so that's all I want to do. Again, just to reiterate, so I pay attention to the titles. Okay, titles are very, very important. The titles of each of the pies as well, and then just kind of the main features, okay, for the overview. So now I'm ready to write the introduction. Okay, and the introduction, anybody know what the introduction is? So I think some of our members have a clear idea what we need to include in the introduction. The introduction has 2 parts, okay, for this type of essay. All right, and what is that? What does the introduction include? Let's see if any of our members here have an idea. Just so all of our viewers can see, here are the members chatting. I'll put that in there. Okay, so the introduction has 2 parts for task 1. Okay, task 1 has just for some people before we get into the introduction even. So task 1 is an expository essay. It explains data, okay. It is in third person author voice, okay. Hi Mien, nice of you to join. Okay, so it's in third person author voice, yeah. And it has 4 parts, okay. So the 4 parts are the introduction, overview, body, or we also call that the analysis, okay, and a summary. And yes, the summary is important if you want to get a high band score, okay. All right. Some of our members are saying for the introduction, the 2 parts that we have to include are the paraphrasing with details. That's right. So we paraphrase the question and give it some details. Okay. So to make it a little bit clearer, I'll call this components. Okay. So 2 components: paraphrase the question and give some more detail using the titles and main features of the graph, okay, in clear English. So here we have the pie charts, okay. So in my introduction, I want to say how many pie charts, okay? Remember, numbers are your friend, especially in task 1, expository essay. So these 2 pie charts, okay, instead of just saying pie charts. Now, I'm not going to say below, okay, because it's weird to refer to the location of information on paper in an essay. Some students do that, but that's not a good idea, so don't write below. Okay, instead of show, I'm going to say illustrate. Okay, and there's a lot of different ways to paraphrase the word show. You can write illustrate, depict, represent, indicate, okay, lots of different ways. All right, and we have some of our members here already paraphrasing. Kyber writes, these 2 pie charts provide information about 6 kinds of goods that the United States is importing from Vietnam, and the US exports 6 goods to Vietnam inversely. Okay, that's very nice, Kyber. That's a good start. You have some details there. There's one detail, Kyber, that you're kind of missing, and that should be included. It's important. Think about what that is, okay? So go ahead, members, and go ahead, students, paraphrase this question. If we have some academic IELTS students, or even if you're a general IELTS student and you just want to challenge Rumi or Emmanuel, then go ahead and paraphrase this as well, okay? So I'm going to do the same, and then we'll compare, okay? So these 2 pie charts illustrate 6 kinds. Okay, you don't, Kyber, you don't need to write various kinds because it's just 6 kinds, okay, of imports going from Vietnam to the US, and inversely going from the US to Vietnam. Okay, and here I would actually write another sentence. The data is provided actually, instead of saying the data, I would write here the volume of merchandise is given as millions of US dollars. Okay, so that's the other important part here, students. Remember what I said, that it's really important to think about the title of the pie charts here. So here it says in millions of dollars, and because it has just one line going through it, I know it's millions of US dollars, okay? So exports to Vietnam in millions of dollars, okay? All right, and we have lots of different items here. So we have garments. Ooh, that's really big. We have garments. We have rice. We have seafood. We have fruit and vegetables, cotton. So I'm not going to list all of those. You could, though. So if you listed those in your introduction, like Vietnam exports these, US exports these, that's okay. You could do that, okay? All right. Okay, but you definitely want to mention the measure, the millions of dollars, okay? So mentioning the measure is super, super important, okay? All right. So let's go back up here. Let's see what some of our members wrote. We have some different responses here. So June writes, these two pie charts compare the value of 6 different goods exported between the US and Vietnam in the unit of $1 million. Okay, in the unit of millions of dollars. The products exported from Vietnam to US consist of coffee, fruit and vegetables, seafood, rice, garments, and other, while those from US include aircraft parts, machinery, fertilizer, cotton, cars, and others. Yeah, so June, you list the different exports and imports, and that's fine. You could do that. Okay, so just give that extra bit of detail. Janelle says the two pie charts depict the 6 categories of goods imported and exported in millions between the United States and Vietnam. In millions of dollars. Janelle, you need the measure because we don't know if millions means millions of units or millions of kilograms. So you need the measure dollars. Okay, that's an important piece there, the dollar. Okay. And otherwise it's quite good. Okay. One other correction, Daniel. The two pie charts depict the 6 categories of goods imported and exported. It's a passive voice because it's imported by the government or by businesses. Okay. Yeah, Daniel, I see your correction there at the bottom in millions of dollars. So that's good. Okay. Fantastic. So now we want to look at the overview. Okay, I'm just going to grab my introduction here. And I'm going to put it underneath underneath our chart here. Yep, there we go. Okay, so here's my introduction. Okay, and now for the sake of IELTS, we want to do the overview as a separate paragraph. Okay, so the overview is basically the main features that we can kind of see. Okay, and so what can we see? So what are the main features? And the main features, when you're looking at it, you want to just kind of look at what really jumps out at you without looking at a lot of detail. Okay, so let's see what really jumps out at us. All right. So for me, this big slice really jumps out. And then this slice here jumps out. And this slice here jumps out. And then we've got kind of this slice here, and we've got these 3 smaller slices there. And here we've got 4 smaller slices there. Now, another part that kind of jumps out at me as well is this and this. So specifically this number here. Let me switch here. So this number and this number. Okay, so if you look at these numbers, there's something else that kind of jumps out. Okay, all right, and there's a number here that's kind of hidden underneath my pen, but there's something that should jump out at you. So what is that? So there's a couple of kind of key features that really kind of pop out at us looking at these. Okay. Okay, so Pranjal says coffee and aircraft. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's okay. Janelle says both have big and small slices. Yeah, Janelle, that's good. Absolutely. So both of these pie charts have kind of these bigger slices, and then they have kind of these smaller slices. So there are a couple of 2 or 3 exports that are kind of the primary exports and imports, and then we have kind of these secondary imports and exports, right? That's definitely one part that jumps out at us. So you can write that. I'm going to write this as well, and then we'll compare, okay? So All right. So here, just to kind of put that into words, those smaller and bigger pieces, right? The coffee, the aircraft, fruit and vegetables. Here we have machinery, right? And so I wrote, at first glance, it is clear that both countries have some primary exports that are worth a large proportion of their exports. Now, I don't want to repeat exports, so primary goods that are worth a large proportion of their exports, as well as some smaller valued exports that contribute to the total value. Okay. All right, so that's me putting that into words. All right, there's different ways to say that. So let's see if some of our members are coming up with some different ideas or some different ways to state that first point. And then there's another point here. Okay, so okay. So also, by looking at the specific dollar amounts, it is evident that the U.S. exports at least twice the value of goods to Vietnam as what they import. Okay. So this is what I was saying here with this 72 versus 23. In fact, it's much more. We could almost say it's 3 times. Okay, so let's be accurate here and let's fix it. Okay, when you notice things like that, you want to fix it. So it's at least thrice. Okay. Thrice means 3 times. Okay. All right. Kyber, let's see what Kyber wrote. So this is what Kyber wrote here. Okay, so Kyber writes, upon initial intersection, it's not intersection, so careful with your words here, Kyber. Make sure you've got the right word. Inspection, okay. It becomes evident that coffee and aircraft parts are 2 popular exports between these 2 countries. This is unclear here because we don't know from this sentence, Kyber, who's exporting coffee or aircraft. So you have to make this clear, okay? So upon initial inspection, it becomes evident that coffee from Vietnam and aircraft parts from the US are 2 popular exports between these 2 countries, while rice, seafood, fertilizer, and machinery are relatively much lower in value. Okay, so that would be the correct way to state that, Kyber. However, this isn't the most effective overview because you're kind of getting lost in details and you're missing some information as well, okay? So you're missing the other types of smaller exports. This is something more that you'd want more for the body paragraph. So something that you want to save for the body paragraph, okay? All right. Let's see what Pancham writes here. Okay, I'm going to grab that Pancham for the overview. So we're looking at the overview here, everyone, and I'm just taking some of the overview that members have put into the chat here and just giving it a quick analysis, okay? So Kyber, your overview with these mistakes, because it's not the most accurate overview and it has these mistakes, it would only be considered about a band 5 level writing, okay? So it really makes a big difference, especially the information that you're including, all right? Okay, so let's take a look at the overview for Pancham. All right, Pancham, let's have a look at this. So let me make this a bit bigger. Okay, and then I'll review it here. So Pancham writes, overall, it is evident that both countries, you don't need the, both countries have some chief contributors to their exports. That's some nice writing there with chief contributors to their exports, and also some secondary exports which make, so that's the plural singular, it's not makes, it's make up the total value. Okay, so not too many mistakes. It's quite clean here, Pancham. However, this is too simple. Okay, for an overview, you'd want a little bit more information here. Okay, so this would be considered like a band 6, maybe a band 7, depending on what you write for the rest of your essay, because there's not too many mistakes, so it's quite clean. If the rest of your essay has a lot of good detail, then fine. But if you're lacking detail in the rest of your body paragraph as well, you're only going to get a 6 simply because you're not giving enough analysis. Okay, so this would be band 6, let's say. Okay, this would be a band 5. Okay, again for Khyber there. Okay, so let's take one more here. So I'm going to take one from June. I see June has one here as well. Okay, and let's grab that. So I'm just pulling this out of the chat, everyone, from our members and giving it a quick analysis just to give some feedback here. So let's take a look at June's overview. Okay. All right. Both countries here, AGG, we'll look at the pie charts here in a second so you'll get an idea, okay? So this is what June writes. Overall, it is noticeable that the distribution of the percentage of exports, careful with information, that the distribution of the value of exports, we don't actually have percentage here, June, we have value, okay? We're not getting the percentage, right? Of exports and imports, and even though it's of the whole, you can't say percentage when we're not given percentage. That would be considered an information mistake, and that would hurt your score, June, so careful with that, okay? So overall, it is noticeable that the distribution of the value of exports and imports between the two countries follows a similar pattern. Good, with primary products worth, it's 2 of them here. You have S, so careful with the with primary products worth just less than half of total values. Okay, so you have values there, that's good. Okay, followed by some other goods that take up smaller proportions. Okay, good. All right. So June, that would be like a band 7. Okay, simply because of this critical mistake here, and also because you're not really including this piece here. So this piece is a pretty important piece for the overview. Okay, so let me take that out so we can see it. So notice again that here we have $72 million in aircraft parts, and coffee's only worth $23 million. So the value of U.S. exports is much greater than the value of Vietnam's exports, and it would be a good idea to mention that in your overview. Okay. All right, everyone. Rashika Janiel, I see that you've got some writing there too. Keep writing. I'll take a look at yours for the body paragraphs. Okay. So once we have the introduction and the overview, let me just again, everyone, these are the pie charts that we're looking at here. It's the exports between the U.S. and Vietnam. It's 2 pie charts. Pie charts are used to represent data from a whole, so here from the total value in millions of dollars. And then we have our introduction and our overview. So here's the introduction. These 2 pie charts illustrate 6 kinds of imports going from Vietnam to the U.S. and inversely going from the US to Vietnam. The volume of merchandise is given as millions of US dollars. At first glance, it is clear that both countries have some primary goods that are worth a large proportion of their exports, as well as some smaller valued exports that contribute to the total value. Also, by looking at the specific dollar amounts, it is evident that the US exports are, now let me take off my correction here, are at least thrice the value of goods to Vietnam as what they import, okay? And instead of as what they import, vice versa. Okay, that's a nice way to say back and forth, the opposite as vice versa. Okay, so this is my introduction and my overview here. And now I want to go to the analysis. Okay, so for the analysis, all I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my points of comparison. So it makes sense that this is my first point of comparison. Okay, so this is my number one, comparing aircraft parts to coffee. Then I'm going to, so okay, let me ask you this instead of me telling you. So my second point of comparison, what would that be? Okay, what would that be? My second point of comparison. My first point of comparison is coffee and aircraft parts. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks, Kyber. I actually feel pretty good, students. It's just my voice, and it's really annoying that I'm all raspy today. Hopefully it'll be better by the end of the day. I gotta rest my voice. So Janiel says machinery and fruits. Machinery from the US and fruits. Yeah, so that might be a good second point of comparison. I definitely wouldn't do others from the US because we don't know what that is, and that's a group, right? So that would be my second one for sure. Okay. And then my third point of comparison would be maybe these here. Okay. And then this would probably be my fourth point of comparison, okay, others from the US. It's kind of the last piece, okay? All right, so we're going to have to do a little bit of math here, comparing and contrasting, and just nice and smooth. So let's do this together. Let's analyze together. Pay attention to your multiplication tables. So, and look at how much of the pie is made up by a certain slice. So look at how much coffee makes up from the whole, right? Look at how much aircraft makes up from the whole as well, okay? All right, so let's take a deeper analysis, and let's start with number one, with aircraft and coffee, okay? So here we go. Okay, this is our body paragraph. You do not need to write this. It's your analysis. Okay, and let's get into it. Okay, so Rashika and I think it was Janil. Yeah, I'll be paying attention specifically for what you're writing here because I missed your overview. And I have to do that, members. I have to keep switching it up, otherwise we won't get through the essay, right? So let's really get writing here on these points. Okay, and then I'll take a look at different members for different parts here. Okay. All right, so here we go. All right, so looking at this data in more detail, okay? I think it was 72 million. Yeah. So over 3 times at $72 million. Okay, so keep writing here, members. This is what I wrote. So here we have the coffee. Okay. So again, coffee. Here we have aircraft parts. And these are kind of similar proportions, so that's what I'm explaining, right? That's what you have to do when you're doing comparisons, is similarities and differences. And so here is how I describe that, okay? Looking at this data in more detail, it is evident that coffee makes up nearly half of the total value of exports for Vietnam to the US at $23 million. Similarly, aircraft parts makes up about the same ratio, it's not ration, it's ratio, of U.S. exports to Vietnam. However, the value is over 3 times that of coffee at $72 million. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat here. I'm looking for what you're writing, okay? I'm going to continue writing, but as soon as I see your analysis come up, members, I'll take a look at one, okay? So now I'm looking at the second, which is machinery and fruits and vegetables, okay? So the second biggest export or kind of goods or merchandise for the U.S. is machinery. It's not other, because other would be an amalgamation of many other types of exports. So even though some people might say, oh, the second biggest for the U.S. is other, it's not really, because that's not one export. That's many different kinds of exports. So you have to be clear on that. For any single export, it's machinery here, okay? So the second largest valued export from the U.S. for a specific category is machinery at $30 million. Now here, students, when you're doing the IELTS exam, don't waste time writing the word dollars over and over again. So what I would recommend is using the symbol for it, which is that right there. Okay, so use the symbol to make it shorter, okay, at $30 million, which is worth twice the amount of the second highest valued Vietnamese export, and that is fruits and vegetables. Now, fruits and vegetables can be paraphrased. What's the word, everyone? How can we paraphrase fruits and vegetables? Okay. Export, which is what? So how can we paraphrase fruits and vegetables? And the IELTS examiner will love to see this word replace fruits and vegetables. So this is what you have to pay attention to. You're always paraphrasing, okay? Meanwhile, I'll take a look at what Mien is writing here. Mien being our member now. Thank you for joining, Mien. So this is what Mien has written. Let me grab all of this, Mien, and take a closer look at it. Okay, how can we say fruits and vegetables simply in another way with one word? Which is, hopefully somebody comes up with it, produce. Okay. So fresh produce, you're talking about fruits, vegetables, possibly meat, but in this case, you know, we know it's fruits and vegetables, okay? So, which is produce, all right? Now, for the rest of this, okay, so for this part here, All right. We can compare that to this part here. Okay. And that's roughly a quarter. Okay. So that would be my next point of comparison. All right. Think about that. So roughly a quarter here. All right. And we'll write about that. Okay. All right, let me take a look at what Mien wrote here. Okay, Mien, so let me give you a bit of feedback. Here we go. So Mien writes, looking closer to the charts, looking closer at the charts. One can see that coffee is the most important merchandise that are exported from Vietnam to the US. We don't know that, okay? We don't actually know if it's the most important. We know it's the most valued, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most important. So be careful, Mien, with making assumptions or inferences that might not be true, okay? So looking closer at the charts, one can see that coffee is the most valued, okay? Right? Instead of valued, you could also use the word prized because money is often referred to as prize. So it's prized, appraised, prized. Okay, but important doesn't work as much. So valued merchandise that are exported from Vietnam to the US with the revenue with a cost. More accurate, of $23 million. While the US exported a large number of aircrafts, it's not a number because that would mean that they're actually exporting like units of aircraft. So be really, really careful, Mien, with your measurements, okay? Large value of aircraft parts. And it's not aircraft, it's aircraft parts. Maybe you didn't see the graph or didn't remember that, but be very careful with the information. Aircraft parts to Vietnam at $72 million. Yeah, and if you can, Mien, just a reminder again to use the dollar sign, which is threefold compared to coffee. Okay, good. All right, so Mien, that writing would be valued at about band 5, just because you're making some information mistakes. Information mistakes, students, are very, very costly on the IELTS, so you have to be really, really careful with that. June, I meant prized, but you could use the word priced as well. So priced instead of prized, yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back here, and now I'm going to compare these components here. Okay, I'm going to leave other as the last piece. Okay, so that's roughly, let's say, a quarter, maybe a little bit less. Okay, so let me write that. Okay, I got to get going here. So let's move along here. So 3 types of products make up just under a quarter of the total value of exports for both countries, namely seafood, rice, and garments, for Vietnam, worth a total of 4.4 plus 4.3, let's round that up to 9, plus 2 is $11 million. Okay, and fertilizer, cotton, and cars. And let's add this up nice and fast. So that's 28 plus 6 is 34.5. Okay, so priced at $34.5 million. Okay. And then last but not least is other. Okay, and I can see that the other for Vietnam is a very small amount. It's just 2 million. And other for the US is a very large amount. It's 35 million. So here we have a very, very clear contrast. Okay. And bear with me here, members, because I am losing my voice a bit here, and I want to get to the end. All right. A major difference in the trade between these countries. Did I use countries or nations before? I did use countries, so I'm going to use nations. So a major difference in the trade between these nations is the value of other goods, which is only $2 million for Vietnam. But a whopping was it 32 million? 35 million dollars for the US. Okay, and let's not forget our dollar sign. Okay, and now I need to write a summary as well, and I'm going to do that. Okay, nice and quick. So again, students, for Band 8 and Band 9, strongly consider writing a summary. Even if you hear people say, oh, you don't need a summary. For Band 8 and Band 9, you should consider it. A good essay, good expository essay does have a summary. If you ask an English teacher, an English professor, they will tell you that good expository essays do have a summary. It's some kind of a takeaway information, okay? So do consider writing a summary. All right. So, and simply just start it as in summary. In summary. There are a number of different products traded between these two countries, and clearly Vietnam spends much more on US exports than America spends on Vietnamese imports. Okay, so that's kind of, it's almost like a paraphrase of the introduction, but not quite. Okay. And yes, we have reached the summary, Daniel, because I'm not only running out of time, but I'm also running out of voice. So, for two reasons this time. But I will read the full essay, okay? And at home, you can work on making it more concise, all right? Yeah, if you write a bad summary, it will have a negative effect on your score, absolutely. So you want a good summary, okay? All right, so here we go. Let me read what we wrote. So these are the pie charts that we're looking at here. Exports between the US and Vietnam in millions of dollars. We have coffee, aircraft. We have these other components here. So these two pie charts illustrate 6 kinds of imports going from Vietnam to the US and inversely going from the US to Vietnam. The volume of merchandise is given as millions of dollars. At first glance, it is clear that both countries have some primary goods that are worth a large proportion of their exports, as well as some smaller valued exports that contribute to the total value. Also, I would probably change value here, total worth or total revenue. Okay. Also, by looking at the specific dollar amounts, it is evident that the U.S. exports are at least thrice the value of goods to Vietnam, and as vice versa. Looking at this data in more detail, it is evident that coffee makes up nearly half of the total value of exports for Vietnam to the U.S. at $23 million. Similarly, aircraft parts makes up about the same ratio of U.S. exports to Vietnam. However, the value is over 3 times that of coffee at $72 million. The second largest value export from the U.S. for a specific category is machinery at $30 million, which is worth twice the amount of the second highest valued Vietnamese export, which is produce. 3 types of products make up just under a quarter of the total value of exports for both countries, namely seafood, rice, and garments for Vietnam, worth a total of $11 million, and fertilizer, cotton, and cars for the U.S. priced at $34 million. A major difference in the trade between these nations is the value of other goods, which is only $2 million for Vietnam, but a whopping $35 million for the U.S. In summary, there are a number of different products traded between these two countries, and clearly Vietnam spends much more on U.S. exports than America spends on Vietnamese imports. Okay, all right, so that is your full essay, and that's how you do it. Thank you for bearing with me, even though my voice is quite a bit off today, getting over this cold. Great writing, everyone. Keep it up. Finish the essay at home on your own. You can always email me your essays for a band score estimate. So you can send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com, and we can give you a band score estimate, so we can let you know roughly like how good your writing is or what you would expect on the IELTS. Remember, everyone, to check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gltshelp.com for general IELTS. And use the code CYBERDAY. It gives you a 40% discount for the next couple of days, so check that out. Okay, the General IELTS website looks like this. Click that big red button to join, and the academic one looks like this. Click that big red button to join there. Thank you, Mi Yen, June, Kyber, Mal, Harwinder, for joining the class. Hopefully I'll see everybody in 30 minutes. Hopefully I'll still have a voice for speaking part 2. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you shortly after we take a little bit of a break. We'll be back. I'm going to have some tea, a throat lozenge, hopefully get some of my voice back. See you soon, everyone. Bye.